Hi good people, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and in this video we'll be making a custom digital static effect that we can add to our drone blueprint that we created earlier. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so the first thing we'll need to do is we'll open up our content drawer, we'll right click, and we're going to select material, and we'll create a new material. We'll call this maybe M_digital effect, and then we'll open that up. So our digital effect is going to be a post-process effect, so we can switch the material domain to be post-process, and then we'll kind of just basically start there. There's going to be a few phases to this effect. The first one, we need to basically acquire an image. So what we can do is we can pull into a scene texture. By default, it's going to try to pull it into a color, but what we want to do is actually switch it to post-process. And we'll do input 0 is fine. From here, we can pull off the color into a component mask. And then we want to expand this out and check the RGB for red, green, blue. We'll collapse that back. And we're going to pull off into a blend_screen. And then we can press 3, click on the graph to add a constant 3, right click, convert it to a parameter called color. We'll leave it black for now, and then we'll plug it into the base, and then let's plug this into the emissive color. And now we begin to have the start of our image. So we can select these nodes, add a comment, and we'll say this is the acquire screen image. And then what we'll do is kind of drag this up and away. And we got to give ourselves a lot of room here because there's going to be a lot of nodes for this. So the next step, what we have to do is we want to add in some digital lines, and then we'll want to basically move them up on the screen. So what we can do is we can get the screen position, and we can pull off the viewport UV and do a breakout float 2 components. Just to get our XY. And then we're going to want to hold S, click in the graph for scalar, and then we're going to rename the scalar to be our lines. And then we're going to hold M, click in the graph to grab a multiply node, and then we're going to hook in our scalar into the B channel here, and then we'll pull off into a frac node. And then we want to hold A, click on the graph to get an add node. We'll pull off the green channel and we'll plug it into the A channel here. And then we'll plug the result into the A channel of the multiply node. Now let's go ahead and actually hook this up. The way we can do it is we'll hold M to add a multiply node. We'll plug this in here and this one in there. And let's see what this kind of looks like so far. So it's pretty much dark, which is mainly, I think, because this is 0. If we add this to 2, you can see the beginning of our effect, which is kind of like I'm going for like a television screen, like an old tube top television where you have like lines going up and down the screen. But we want to move this. So for the rest of this effect, we're going to need a time node. And then we can hold M to add it into a multiply node. And then we'll hold S to add in another scalar. And the scalar we're going to name is our speed. And I think starting off, we can maybe do 0.1. Hook this into this. And then we can see the lines are actually starting to move. That looks pretty good. So let's kind of clean this up and move some nodes around. And I think what we can do is grab all these, we'll pull them back, C to comment, and we're going to call this our lines and our movement. So the effect is starting to get there. So the last stage of this effect is basically we're going to add in some snow, some static snow, and then we're going to move that and the X horizontal, so it's kind of moving left to right or right to left, doesn't really matter. And then we'll basically compress it, so it'll kind of turn into a line. And that'll kind of make sense here in a second. So Let's start off by searching for a texture coordinate. And then from our texture coordinate, we can pull into a panner node. And then we're going to need 2 textures. So let's actually go into our engine folder here. If you don't see your engine folder, you can go to settings, and then you can basically check the box to show engine content, and then it should come up there. These are basically some built-in items for the Unreal Engine that kind of comes with it. It's mainly used for like underlying engine content stuff, but you can reuse a lot of it. So we'll basically go in here, and then I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to search for texture, and then I think it's near the bottom. Yeah, so we want the water normal. We can make use of that. And then the other texture I want to use are these T-Sky stars. I don't think it matters which one we use. I'm going to use the one on the left. Hopefully that won't matter. If so, I'll grab the one on the right, but we'll see here. So we're going to take this panner node. We'll feed into the UVs of this water normal. And then we're going to pull off that into a mask, or a component mask. And we're just going to do the red-green, and we'll leave the blue alone, so that's fine. And then we'll hold M to click in the graph to add a multiply node. And then we'll hold A, click in the graph to add an add node here. And we're actually going to re-add the original texture coordinate. So this is like the modified. And we're going to bring it kind of like back over here. And then we'll pull off into one last panner node. And then this panner will feed into this sky texture. And then basically what we need to do is come into an add node. And we need to add these final results together before we feed them into the emissive color here. You notice not much has changed. That's because we need to make some slight adjustments here. The multiply node is multiplying against 1. We want to use a lower value, so like maybe 0.01. And there you can see some of the static snow kind of come in, which is coming from this texture right here, which is great. But now we kind of need to move these items, and that's what the panner nodes are going to be used for. So we can use the first panner and do like a 0.1 in the X and Y, and that'll give us a little shimmer, which looks great. And then we can use the second panner to move in the, we'll probably just do the X, just to move them like left to right, or if you want to go, or right to left in this case. And if you want to do like vertical, you can use the Y instead of the X. You can kind of play around with the effects, and I'll show you what I mean there. So this effects right now doesn't look great. But what we can do is we can compress like the X-axis here. So we can come over, and I guess it'd be the U-axis, or the U tiling here in the texture coordinates. If we set this to be like 0, you can see it compresses those, so it looks more like a static effect. And if you didn't want to do that, like say you wanted vertical lines, you can do this in the V, and you sort of get this effect. Or if you wanted, you can move it kind of like this here, and you sort of get this effect. So you can kind of play around and kind of get interesting, I guess, designs or material effects that we can add. So I'm going to do what I originally had. I like it in the X-axis, and then I will set my U tiling to be kind of horizontal like that. And I think that looks okay. All right, but let's go ahead and comment this out. So this one is our digital snow effect. So we basically we acquire the screen image, we add some lines and we move them, and then we add in the snow, compress it and move those. And then we kind of have this final effect here that we can kind of mess around and play with. So like say with the lines, you could add in, say you do like 100 lines, you get something like that. And then maybe you do a real slow movement like 0.001. So you can kind of mess around and get like interesting effects just with this. But I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do maybe a 0.1. I'm gonna start with just 2. You can even come in here, and if you wanted to add a color, like you could do like a green, like a subtle green. I'm gonna leave it dark for right now, but let's go ahead and save this. There is one last area that we might look at. Let's actually preview the effect first before we change anything. So I'm gonna add it to this drone here. So what we can do is go to our example folder, open up the blueprint for the drone, and then under the viewport, there's our little drone there. This is a post-process effect, so there's a few different ways you can do those. You can add them to your world and set them to unbound so it affects everything. I only want this effect to play on the drone, so I'm going to add it to the drone component, or as a component. So I can search for post-process, add it in, and then select it. And on the right-hand side, there's going to be a rendering features. You can expand that out. And then under that, there's post-process materials. We created that material, so we can add it, select it as an asset reference. I think we called it M_digital effect. And the last thing we want to do is I want to set this to unbound, because I only want to use the radius of 100 units around the drone, like a small circle. So now if I save that, you can see the effect isn't playing on the player side. I look normal, but if I possess the drone, you can see I have my digital effect, which is pretty neat. Now it looks maybe a tad dark. So a few different ways you could tackle that. If we go back into the material, you can select on the main material instance over here. And then if you scroll down, there's a post-process section for blendable location. We're doing it after the tone mapping. You could try translucency after DOF, and that might brighten it up a bit for you, just depending on the order of operations of when the effect gets placed. So now it's a little less dark. You know, maybe you're looking for this sort of effect. And that looks kind of neat. But maybe let's do a little bit more. We can go with it. Let's maybe add a color. I'll go with green. Maybe somewhere right around there maybe. And then for the lines, let's do 100 maybe. And then let's slow the lines down. I don't know, maybe we get something really crazy. So now you got this sort of effect. You can see you can get real weird with it. And then maybe that one might be too bright. So if you go back to the effect, you can select this, and back in the blendable location, go back after tone mapping so it darkens it. So maybe you get that weird kind of like Terminator effect sort of look. But yeah, you can play with it, get different effects, but that's an easy way we can add post-process material effects to various blueprints that you have in your world that you can maybe possess. So you get interesting designs, basically. But all right, everyone, I think we'll cut it here to keep it short. I hope you found some informative value that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.